I never expected anything important to happen the night my brother's best friend stayed over. If you had asked me that morning, I would have told you it was going to be one of the most boring weekends of the summer. I was wrong. Looking back now, that night changed everything. My name is Braden. I was 22 at the time, fresh out of college, stuck living back at home while I figured out what I wanted to do with my life. My younger brother Chase was 19 and somehow had a much more exciting social life than I did. Our house was constantly full of his friends. Most of them annoyed me. One of them definitely didn't. His name was Diego. The first time I met him, I remember thinking he was unfairly attractive. Not movie star attractive. Worse. The kind of attractive that felt real. Dark hair that never seemed messy, even when it was. Easy smile. Confident without acting like he knew he was handsome. The kind of guy who could walk into a room and instantly make everyone relax. Girls loved him. Guys loved him too. Everybody did, including me. Not that I ever planned on admitting that. Diego and Chase had been best friends since high school. They played basketball together, went to concerts together, spent half their weekends hanging out together, which meant Diego was always around. And over the years, I got very good at pretending I didn't notice him, pretending I didn't look forward to hearing his voice downstairs, pretending I didn't get nervous whenever he showed up unexpectedly, pretending I didn't have a ridiculous crush on my brother's best friend. The problem was that Diego always treated me like an actual person, not Chase's older brother, not some random guy living in the house. Me. Whenever he came over, he'd stop and talk, ask how work was going, remember things I told him weeks ago, laugh at my jokes even when they weren't funny. Little things, probably meaningless things. But when you like someone, meaningless things start feeling important. That Saturday afternoon, I was sitting on the back porch trying to fix my laptop when I heard Chase's truck pull into the driveway. A second later, familiar voices drifted through the open window. Chase and Diego. My stomach immediately did something stupid. I hated that it still happened. I looked up just as they walked through the backyard gate. "There he is," Diego said, pointing at me. I rolled my eyes. Unfortunately, he laughed. That laugh always got me. "Still trying to fix that thing?" he asked. "For the last 3 hours. Maybe it's dead. Thanks for the technical support." I charge extra for good advice. Chase groaned. "You two flirt more than actual couples." My entire body froze for exactly half a second. Then Diego burst out laughing. "Relax, Braden. He says that about everyone." "Because it's true," Chase said. I grabbed the nearest cushion and threw it at him. He dodged. Diego didn't. The cushion smacked him directly in the face. For a moment, there was silence. Then he slowly lowered it. "You've made a terrible mistake." I immediately stood up. "No." "Oh, yes." "Diego, run." I took off across the yard while he chased me. We probably looked ridiculous. Two grown men sprinting around the backyard while Chase sat on a chair laughing so hard he nearly fell over. Eventually, Diego caught me near the fence. His hand wrapped around my wrist. I stopped. He stopped. For one weird second, neither of us moved. His grip loosened. My heart sped up. And suddenly I became very aware of how close he was standing. Close enough to see the tiny scar near his eyebrow. Close enough to notice the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. close enough that I had to remind myself how breathing worked. Then Chase ruined the moment. "Get a room!" Diego immediately let go. I immediately stepped back. And just like that, the weird little moment disappeared. The rest of the afternoon passed normally, at least on the surface. We ordered pizza, watched basketball, argued about terrible movies, the usual. But every now and then, I'd catch Diego looking at me. Not staring, just looking. And every time it happened, I found myself wondering if I was imagining it. Around 10 that night, a thunderstorm rolled in, the kind that showed up out of nowhere. Rain hammered the windows. Wind rattled the trees outside. I was halfway through making coffee when Chase walked into the kitchen. "Well," he said. "Well, what?" "Diego's stuck here." "What?" He pointed outside. The rain looked like a waterfall. "Oh, yeah. That bad?" "Roads already flooding." A few minutes later, Diego joined us. "So, apparently, I'm homeless tonight." "Congratulations," Chase said. "Can I sleep on your floor?" "No." Diego looked offended. "I thought we were friends." "We are." "Then you snore." "I do not." "You absolutely do." They immediately started arguing. I tried not to smile. This had happened 100 times before. Eventually, Mom solved the problem, as moms do. "Diego can stay in the guest room." Problem solved. Or at least, it should have been. Except, about an hour later, another problem appeared. The guest room ceiling started leaking. Badly. A bucket was placed under it. Then another. Then another. Mom looked exhausted. Dad looked annoyed. And Diego looked guilty for existing. Finally, Mom sighed. "Okay, new plan." Everyone looked at her. Then she pointed directly at me. "Braden." I already knew where this was going. "No." "Yes." "No. Your room has the biggest bed." I stared at her. She stared back. I turned toward Diego. He looked just as surprised as I felt. Chase immediately started laughing. "Oh, this is going to be funny." "You're sleeping outside," I told him. "Worth it." Mom clapped her hands. "Settled." Just like that. No discussion, no debate, no escape. A few hours later, I was standing in my bedroom, trying very hard not to overthink the fact that Diego was about to sleep in my bed, and failing miserably. Because for the first time in years, the person I couldn't stop thinking about was going to be only a few feet away all night. At the time, I had no idea that neither of us was going to get much sleep. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. It was one night, one bed, nothing complicated. That speech lasted right up until Diego walked into my room carrying a pillow. Then every bit of confidence I had immediately disappeared. "Nice room," he said. "You've been in here before." "Still nice." I rolled my eyes and pretended to focus on my phone. The truth was I suddenly felt awkward. Painfully awkward. Diego didn't seem bothered at all. He dropped his bag beside my desk and stretched. I instantly regretted looking up. The guy had spent years accidentally making my life difficult. Not because he was doing anything wrong, just because he looked like, well, Diego. Meanwhile, I was standing there trying to act normal while my brain completely betrayed me. Outside, thunder rattled the windows. Rain continued slamming against the roof. The storm somehow felt even louder from inside my room. Diego glanced toward the window. Looks like I'm definitely not driving home tonight. Probably not. You okay? I blinked. What? You've been staring at your phone for 10 minutes. I looked down. The screen was black. Oh, Diego laughed. There he is. I hated how easily he could read me. Long day, I muttered. Sure. The smile he gave me suggested he didn't believe me. At all. A few minutes later, we got ready for bed, and that somehow made things worse. Because suddenly I became hyper aware of everything. The size of the room, the distance between us, the fact that there was only one mattress, the fact that Diego somehow looked annoyingly good, even in old sweatpants. At one point, I caught myself staring, immediately looked away, hopefully before he noticed. No such luck. A grin appeared. Caught you. I wasn't staring. You absolutely were. I was looking at the wall. The wall behind me? Exactly, he laughed again. I threw a pillow at him. This time he caught it. Eventually the lights went off. The room fell quiet. For a while, neither of us said anything. The only sounds were rain and distant thunder. I stared at the ceiling, completely awake. Beside me, Diego shifted. You asleep? No. Good. I turned slightly. What? I have a question. That immediately sounded dangerous. What question? You ever wonder how Chase survives? I snorted. Daily. Same. And somehow that started a conversation. A long one. The kind that only happens after midnight. We talked about everything. College, work, bad relationships, family, random childhood stories. The storm kept raging outside while hours seemed to disappear. At some point, we both stopped pretending we were going to sleep anytime soon. I learned things about Diego I'd never known before, like how he'd nearly changed schools senior year, how he'd wanted to become a physical therapist, how he'd spent months helping his grandfather recover after surgery. The more he talked, the more impossible it became not to like him. Not just because he was attractive, because he was genuinely a good person, which honestly felt unfair. People shouldn't be allowed to have both. Eventually, the conversation slowed. The room grew quieter. I rolled onto my side. To my surprise, Diego had done the same. Now we were facing each other. Neither of us spoke. For a moment, I thought maybe he'd fallen asleep. Then he said quietly, "Can I ask you something?" "Depends." He smiled. "Why don't you date?" The question caught me completely off guard. My stomach tightened. That's random. You avoided answering. I looked away. Just haven't met the right person. The sound carried enough skepticism to make me nervous. What? Nothing. Diego. He hesitated, then sighed. I don't think that's the real answer. The air suddenly felt different. He wasn't teasing anymore. His voice sounded serious. I swallowed. What do you think the real answer is? His eyes met mine. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he shrugged. Honestly? Yeah. I think you're scared. That surprised me. Because he was right. Painfully right. Not just about dating, about everything. Especially this. Especially him. But there was no way I could tell him that. So I laughed it off. That's deep. I'm serious. I know. Thunder boomed somewhere outside. The room flashed briefly from lightning. For half a second, his face became visible in the darkness. Then everything went dim again. Neither of us looked away. And suddenly, I became aware of something. The distance between us wasn't very big anymore. Maybe because we'd both shifted while talking. Maybe because neither of us noticed. Or maybe because part of us had noticed. My pulse quickened. Diego seemed to realize it too. His expression changed slightly. Not dramatically. Just enough. Enough to make my chest tighten. Neither of us said anything. The silence stretched. Longer. Longer. Then Chase's voice suddenly echoed from somewhere down the hallway. "Literally go to sleep." We both jumped, then burst out laughing. The tension shattered instantly. I buried my face in the pillow. Diego was laughing so hard the mattress shook. "He's unbelievable," I said. "He's definitely listening at the door." 100%. The laughter slowly faded. The room settled again. This time sleep finally started catching up with us. My eyes felt heavy. My body relaxed. For the first time all night, I thought maybe I'd actually fall asleep. Then Diego spoke again. His voice was quieter now, almost hesitant. "Hey, Braden?" "Yeah?" A pause. Then, "I'm glad I got stuck here." My heart skipped. I wasn't sure if he realized what those words did to me. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. But I couldn't stop smiling. "Me too," I admitted. Another pause. Then silence. Real silence this time. Within minutes, his breathing slowed. Sleep. I listened to the storm outside. Listened to Diego breathing only a few feet away, and wondered why that simple fact made me feel happier than it should have. Eventually, my eyes closed. But sometime later that night, I woke up, and the first thing I noticed was that Diego wasn't on his side of the bed anymore. He was right next to me, close enough that our shoulders were touching, close enough that my heart instantly started racing. And when I realized one of his arms was draped across me in his sleep, I knew getting through the rest of the night was about to become a lot more complicated. For a few seconds, I didn't move. I just lay there, staring into the darkness, trying to convince myself I was imagining things. Maybe I was still half asleep. Maybe I was dreaming. Maybe... Nope. Definitely awake. Definitely not dreaming. Diego's arm was resting across my stomach. His shoulder was pressed against mine. And somehow, at some point during the night, he'd ended up occupying about 80% of the bed. I tried not to laugh. The guy was basically a human furnace. Warm, comfortable, dangerously comfortable. My heart was pounding hard enough that I was surprised it didn't wake him up. Carefully, I turned my head. The room was dark, but enough moonlight slipped through the curtains for me to make out his face. He looked younger asleep, more relaxed. No confident grin, no sarcastic comments, just Diego. For a moment I let myself look, really look, because he wasn't awake to catch me this time, and because part of me knew moments like this didn't happen often. The storm had mostly passed. Only occasional rain tapped against the windows now. Everything felt strangely peaceful. Then Diego shifted. My entire body froze. His arm tightened slightly. Not enough to trap me, just enough to make my pulse double. He muttered something unintelligible, then settled again, still asleep. I exhaled slowly. "You're impossible," I whispered. A sleepy smile appeared on his face. I nearly had a heart attack. Thankfully, he didn't wake up. Eventually, I managed to fall asleep again. When morning came, Sunlight was shining directly into my eyes. I groaned, rolled over, and immediately regretted it, because Diego was awake, very awake, and looking directly at me. For one horribly awkward second, neither of us spoke. Then he smiled. "Morning." I buried my face in a pillow. "No." His laugh filled the room. "You always wake up this grumpy. You were practically sleeping on top of me." "I was not. You absolutely were. I move around. You invaded 3 countries during the night." Now he was laughing again. And somehow I found myself laughing too, which was annoying because I was trying to be dramatic. A few minutes later, we finally got out of bed. The awkwardness I expected never really arrived. If anything, things felt easier, more natural. Like spending half the night talking had changed something. Not dramatically, just enough. Downstairs, Chase was already eating breakfast. The second he saw us, his eyes narrowed. I immediately didn't like that expression. "What?" His grin widened. "Nothing." "Chase." "Nothing." Diego sat beside him. "He's definitely hiding something." "Yep." "Should we be worried?" "Definitely." Chase looked far too pleased with himself. "You guys were talking until like 3 in the morning." I froze. Diego froze. "How do you know that?" I asked. Thin walls. "You're a creep." "Correct." Mom walked into the kitchen carrying coffee. "Did you boys sleep okay?" "Great," Chase answered. "No one asked you," I said. Mom ignored us, as moms do. The rest of the morning passed surprisingly fast. The rain finally stopped. Sunlight returned. Everything should have gone back to normal, but it didn't, because I kept noticing little things. Diego sitting next to me when other chairs were available, the way he'd casually bump my shoulder during conversations, the way his attention always seemed to drift back toward me. And the worst part? I was doing exactly the same thing. Around noon, Chase got called into work unexpectedly, which left me alone with Diego. The second Chase left, the house felt strangely quiet. For a while, we sat in the living room watching some terrible action movie. Neither of us paid much attention. Eventually, Diego muted the television. I looked over. "What are you doing?" "Thinking." "That's dangerous." He smirked. "Fair." Then he leaned back against the couch. "You know something?" "What?" "I'm glad Chase got called in." My stomach immediately tightened. "Why?" His eyes met mine. Because suddenly he looked nervous. Actually nervous. And I wasn't sure I'd ever seen that before. "I wanted to ask you something." The room suddenly felt very small. "What?" He opened his mouth, closed it again, looked away, then laughed at himself. I had a whole speech prepared. That bad? Worse. Now I was curious. "Diego." He rubbed the back of his neck, a habit I'd noticed whenever he felt uncomfortable. And for some reason, that made my pulse speed up, because Diego never seemed uncomfortable. Except now. Finally, he looked back at me. "Would you maybe want to hang out sometime?" I blinked. "We're hanging out right now. Not like this." "Oh, yeah." For a second, neither of us moved. Then realization hit me. "Oh." A bigger smile appeared. "Yeah." My heart nearly stopped, because I suddenly understood exactly what he was asking. And apparently he understood that I understood, which somehow made everything even more terrifying. Neither of us looked away. Neither of us laughed. For once, there was no joke to hide behind. Just the two of us, and one question hanging between us. A question that might change everything. Braden? My voice came out quieter than expected. Yeah? His expression softened. Would you go on a date with me? And just like that, every thought in my head completely disappeared. For a moment, I genuinely thought I'd heard him wrong. The room went completely silent. My brain stopped working. And Diego just sat there, waiting, looking nervous, actually nervous, which somehow made this feel even more real. Say something, he finally said. I blinked. Right. Preferably words. I laughed despite myself, mostly because I was panicking. You want to go on a date with me? His smile turned sheepish. That was the question, yes. I stared at him, then stared a little longer. Years. I'd spent years convincing myself nothing like this would ever happen. Years telling myself Diego was completely out of reach. Years pretending I didn't care. And now he was sitting 3 feet away asking me out. It felt ridiculous, impossible, amazing, all at the same time. Braden, sorry. You keep staring. I know. Is that good or bad? I couldn't help smiling. Good. The relief on his face was immediate, huge, almost adorable. Good? Very good. A grin spread across his face. So that's a yes? I nodded. That's definitely a yes. For a second, neither of us spoke. We just sat there smiling like idiots. Then Diego leaned back against the couch. Wow. Wow? I was convinced you were going to say no. I laughed. Why? Because you're impossible to read. Me? Yes, you. That was rich coming from him. The guy had apparently liked me while acting completely normal. How long? I asked. His eyebrows lifted. How long what? How long have you been thinking about asking me out? Diego immediately looked away, which told me everything. No way. What? Diego, he groaned. I started laughing. How long? A while. A while? A long while. My jaw dropped. Seriously? He nodded. Seriously. I wasn't sure whether to be shocked or annoyed. Possibly both. You're telling me you've liked me this whole time? Not the whole time. How long then? He thought about it. About 8 months. 8 months. 8 months. I grabbed a cushion and hit him with it. What was that for? 8 months? I was working up to it. You had 8 months. I know. Now we were both laughing. And for the first time all day, the nervousness started fading. The conversation became easier, lighter, like we finally stopped pretending. Eventually, Diego glanced toward the window. Can I tell you something embarrassing? This should be good. He pointed upstairs. When your mom told me I was sleeping in your room, I almost had a heart attack. I froze. What? He nodded. I was trying so hard to act normal. My entire face heated up because I'd done exactly the same thing. No way. Way. I thought I was the only one freaking out. Nope. That realization made me ridiculously happy. The rest of the afternoon disappeared in a blur. We talked for hours, not just about us, about everything. Things we'd never really discussed before. future plans, dream jobs, places we wanted to visit. It felt strange realizing how much we already knew about each other and how much we still didn't. Around 4 o'clock, Chase finally came home. The second he walked through the door, he stopped, looked at me, looked at Diego, then narrowed his eyes. Oh no. Neither of us said anything. Oh no. Diego immediately started laughing. What? I know that face. What face? The face that says something happened while I was gone. I tried to keep a straight expression. Failed instantly. Chase pointed at us. I knew it. Knew what? Diego asked. I don't know yet. He dropped his backpack. But I'm going to. For the next 10 minutes, he tried interrogating us. Terribly. Absolutely terribly. Eventually, he gave up, mostly because neither of us stopped laughing. That evening, after dinner, Diego finally had to leave. The roads were clear again. The weather had settled. Everything was back to normal. Except nothing felt normal anymore. We stood outside beside his truck, while Chase was inside grabbing something he'd forgotten. For the first time all day, we were alone again. The sunset painted everything gold. Neither of us seemed eager to end the conversation. So, Diego said. So, Friday? I smiled. Friday. Our first date. The words sent a ridiculous amount of excitement through me. Our first date. His grin widened. I've been waiting a long time to say that. Before I could respond, the front door opened. Chase appeared, immediately suspicious. Why are you both smiling like that? Goodbye, Chase, Diego said. You're hiding something. Goodbye, Chase. I'll figure it out. Then he pointed at us dramatically. I always do. As Diego climbed into his truck, I couldn't stop smiling. And judging by the expression on his face, neither could he. I watched him drive away. For the first time in years, everything felt different. Better. But what I didn't realize yet was that our first date was only the beginning. Because getting together was the easy part. The real challenge was figuring out what happened next. The entire week leading up to Friday was torture. Not bad torture, the good kind. The kind where you're constantly checking your phone. The kind where every notification makes your heart jump. The kind where you keep smiling for absolutely no reason and then immediately feel ridiculous about it. Diego texted me every day. Not endlessly, just enough. A random joke during breakfast. A photo of something stupid he'd seen at work. A message asking how my day was going. Simple things. But after years of pretending there was nothing between us, every message felt different now. Real. By Wednesday, Chase had started noticing. Unfortunately. Why are you smiling at your phone? I'm not. You are. I'm literally not. He squinted at me. Then his eyes widened. No. I immediately knew that look. No. No. Chase. He pointed dramatically. You have a crush. I threw a couch pillow at him. He caught it. Who is it? Nobody. You're lying. Mind your business. His grin somehow got bigger. Oh, this is amazing. The worst part? He had absolutely no idea. Not even close. Friday finally arrived. I spent way too much time deciding what to wear. Changed shirts 3 times. Changed shoes twice. Nearly canceled everything out of nervousness. Then Diego pulled into the driveway, and suddenly nothing else mattered. I saw him step out of the truck. Dark jeans, black shirt, that stupid smile. My heart instantly betrayed me. The guy looked unfairly good. He walked toward the front porch, stopped, looked me up and down, then smiled. Wow. I rolled my eyes. What? You look amazing. Every ounce of confidence disappeared immediately. You too. His grin widened. Good answer. Inside the house, Chase appeared from nowhere. Literally nowhere. Like he'd been waiting. I knew it. Diego and I both froze. What? I asked. I knew somebody was coming over. Okay. You never care how you look. That's rude. It's true. Diego was trying not to laugh. The traitor. 5 minutes later, we escaped. Barely. The second we got into the truck, both of us started laughing. I can't believe he still doesn't know. He will eventually. Oh, definitely. We drove into town. Nothing fancy. Dinner. A walk afterward. Normal date stuff. And honestly, that was perfect, because neither of us needed anything complicated. We already knew each other. We already liked each other. The date wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about finally getting the chance to be honest. At dinner, we talked for nearly 2 hours. The waitress probably hated us. We barely touched the food, mostly because we kept getting distracted. One story led to another. One joke led to another. At some point, my face actually hurt from smiling. When we finally left the restaurant, the sky was beginning to darken. The air felt warm, comfortable. We wandered through downtown with no real destination, just talking. Eventually, we reached a small park overlooking the river. The benches were mostly empty. The water reflected the city lights. Everything felt strangely calm. For a while, neither of us spoke. We simply sat there, watching the river, enjoying the quiet. Then Diego broke the silence. You know what's funny? What? I spent months trying to convince myself you weren't interested. I laughed. Months? Months. That's embarrassing. I know. The smile on his face softened. What about you? I looked toward the water, then sighed. Years. His head snapped toward me. Years? I nodded. His jaw literally dropped. No way. Way. Brayden. What? You should have said something. I laughed. You should have said something. Fair. We sat there grinning at each other. The conversation faded. The silence returned. But this time, it felt different. Warmer. More intimate. And suddenly I became aware of how close we were sitting. How close he moved without either of us noticing. My pulse quickened. Diego noticed. I knew he did, because his expression changed. Just slightly. The same way it had the night of the storm. Neither of us looked away. The city lights reflected in his eyes. For a second, everything else seemed to disappear. The river, the traffic, the distant voices, all of it, gone. Just me and him, and the feeling that something important was about to happen. Slowly, Diego reached for my hand. Not dramatically, not nervously, just naturally, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Our fingers intertwined, warm, comfortable, right. My chest tightened, not from anxiety, from happiness, pure happiness. Diego smiled, the kind of smile I spent years secretly wishing was meant for me. Now it was, and somehow that still felt impossible. "Hey, Braden?" "Yeah?" His voice was quiet, soft. "I'm really glad that ceiling started leaking." I laughed so hard I nearly fell off the bench. Then he started laughing too. And just like that, the tension disappeared again. The nervousness, the uncertainty, gone. For the first time, this felt real. Not a crush, not wishful thinking, not something impossible. Real. As the evening grew darker, we stayed there talking, neither of us eager to leave, neither of us ready for the night to end. And eventually, sitting beside him under the city lights, I realized something. The night Diego slept in my bed had changed my life. But it wasn't because we shared a room or because of some dramatic moment. It was because that night finally gave us the push we both needed, the push to stop hiding and finally see what had been right in front of us all along. After our first date, things should have felt awkward. At least that's what I expected. Instead, everything felt surprisingly natural, almost like we'd skipped the uncomfortable phase entirely. Probably because we'd already spent years building a friendship before either of us admitted what we felt. The next few weeks became a blur of late-night phone calls, random coffee runs, and finding increasingly ridiculous excuses to spend time together. Not that we needed excuses anymore. Still, old habits die hard. One Saturday morning, Diego showed up at the house, carrying 2 coffees. Mom answered the door. I heard her laughing before I even came downstairs. The second I entered the kitchen, both of them looked at me. That immediately made me nervous. "What?" Mom smiled. "Oh, nothing." That was never a good sign. Diego looked suspiciously amused. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing." "Diego," he lifted his coffee, "I value my life." Mom laughed again. Neither of them were helping. The truth was, keeping things secret was getting harder. Not because anyone had caught us, because apparently we were terrible at hiding it, especially around Chase. For nearly 2 weeks, he'd been trying to solve the mystery of why both of us were suddenly acting different. He knew something had changed. He just couldn't figure out what. And somehow that made the situation even funnier. One afternoon, we were all watching a game in the living room. Chase sat between us. A terrible strategic decision. Because every time he looked at the television, Diego and I immediately exchanged amused glances. At one point, Chase turned suddenly. We both looked away, far too quickly. His eyes narrowed. "Oh, come on." "What?" I asked. "I saw that." "Saw what?" "You two are weird." Diego nearly choked, trying not to laugh. "Weird how?" "I don't know." Chase pointed dramatically between us. "But something is happening." The best part? He sounded genuinely frustrated, like he was trying to solve an impossible puzzle. For another week, the mystery continued. Then, everything exploded, completely by accident, as these things usually do. It happened on a Sunday. Mom had asked me to help organize boxes in the garage. Naturally, I convinced Diego to help too, mostly because any task became more enjoyable when he was around. We spent an hour moving old junk around. By the end, both of us were sweaty, dusty, and exhausted. Diego grabbed a bottle of water from the mini fridge. I was saying something stupid, Probably a joke. Honestly, I don't even remember. What I do remember is this. He laughed. I laughed. And without thinking, I leaned forward and kissed him. Just a quick kiss. Natural. Automatic. Like I'd forgotten anyone else existed. The problem? Someone else did exist. Specifically, Chase, who happened to be standing in the garage doorway, holding a basketball, completely frozen. The bottle slipped from Diego's hand, hit the floor, rolled away. Nobody moved, nobody spoke, for about 5 full seconds. Then Chase pointed. Once, twice, 3 times. His brain clearly trying to reboot. No. I closed my eyes. Oh no. No. Diego looked like he wanted the concrete floor to swallow him whole. Chase stared at both of us, then at us again, then back again. You point, and you point. What? Not a question, a demand. I rubbed my face. This isn't how we wanted to tell you. Tell me what? Silence. His eyes widened. Oh my God. More silence. Then, oh my God. The volume doubled. Mom immediately yelled from inside the house. What happened? Chase spun toward the kitchen. Mom! No, I shouted. Yes. And just like that, the secret was gone. Completely. Forever. The next hour was one of the most chaotic experiences of my life. Not because anyone was upset. Quite the opposite. Mom wasn't surprised. At all. Which was concerning. Dad was confused for approximately 30 seconds before shrugging and asking if we wanted burgers for dinner. And Chase? Chase was deeply offended. Not because we were dating, because everyone else apparently knew before he did. You knew? He pointed at Mom. She nodded. Months ago. He looked betrayed, then pointed at Dad. You too? Dad shrugged. Pretty much. Chase turned toward Diego. You? Obviously. Then he turned toward me, his expression wounded. Everybody knew except me. I honestly felt bad, for about 3 seconds. Then he started dramatically listing all the clues he'd missed, and I started laughing. Soon everyone was laughing, even him, eventually. Later that night, after the chaos settled, Diego and I sat on the back porch, the same place where this whole story had really begun. The air was warm, the neighborhood quiet. Inside, Chase was still complaining loudly about being the last person to know. I smiled. Diego smiled. Then he reached over and took my hand. Simple, comfortable, perfect. You okay? He asked. I looked toward the house, toward the lights glowing through the windows, toward the family laughing inside, then back at him. Yeah. A smile tugged at my lips. More than okay. Because for the first time in a very long time, everything felt exactly right. And somehow, the best part was knowing the story still wasn't over. By the time everyone knew about us, life became a lot easier. Not perfect, just easier. No more hiding, no more pretending, no more carefully choosing words whenever Diego was around. For the first time, we could simply be ourselves. And honestly, That took some getting used to. A month passed, then another. Summer slowly turned into fall. The days became cooler. The evenings arrived earlier. And somehow, Diego became part of my everyday routine. Morning texts, random calls, movie nights, family dinners. He was around so often that Mom eventually stopped announcing when he arrived. She just yelled from another room, "Diego, there's food in the kitchen," like he lived there, which, according to Chase, he practically did. One Friday evening, we were all sitting around the fire pit in the backyard. The same group as always. Me, Diego, Chase, a couple of friends. Everyone laughing, everyone relaxed. At one point, Chase leaned back in his chair and shook his head dramatically. "I still can't believe this happened." I already knew where this was going. Let it go. Never. The others immediately looked interested. Diego groaned. "Oh no. Oh yes." Chase pointed toward us. "These two idiots liked each other forever." Chase. Forever. He ignored me. Meanwhile, I was apparently the only person on earth who didn't know. Everybody laughed, including us. Because honestly, he wasn't wrong. The funny part was that the more time passed, the more obvious it seemed. All those little moments, the extra conversations, the excuses to hang out, the way we'd always somehow ended up sitting next to each other. Looking back, it felt ridiculous that neither of us had said anything sooner. Later that night, after everyone left, Diego and I stayed outside. The fire had almost burned out. The backyard sat quiet beneath a sky full of stars. I leaned back in my chair. "You know something?" "What?" "I think Chase is still genuinely upset." Diego laughed. "He'll survive." Maybe. A comfortable silence settled between us, the kind I'd grown to love. No pressure, no awkwardness, just being together. Eventually, Diego glanced toward me, his expression softer than usual. "What are you thinking about?" I looked toward the house. The porch light glowed softly. Memories drifted through my head. The storm, the guest room flooding, the conversation in bed, everything that followed. Then I smiled. "That night." "The storm?" "Yeah." He laughed quietly. "Best storm ever. Definitely." His hand found mine. Warm, familiar, comfortable. The same feeling I felt on our first date, only stronger now. Because this wasn't something new anymore. It was real, built, growing. The kind of thing that didn't disappear when the excitement faded. And that meant more than I could explain. For a while, we sat there watching the stars, neither of us speaking, just enjoying the moment. Eventually, Diego broke the silence. "Can I admit something?" "Sure." He smiled. "I barely slept that night." I laughed immediately. "No way." "Way. I thought you were asleep." I was trying to sleep. The grin on his face widened. Then I kept thinking about the fact that I was in your room. My heart did the same stupid thing it always did around him. Even now, months later. I thought I was the only one. Nope. We looked at each other, both smiling, both remembering. Then Diego shook his head. "It's crazy." "What is?" "If that ceiling hadn't leaked," I finished the sentence, "none of this would have happened." He nodded. Exactly. Maybe he was right. Maybe things would have happened eventually. Maybe not. But either way, that storm had changed everything, and I was grateful for it, more grateful than I could ever put into words. As the night grew later, we finally stood, headed toward the house, toward home, toward whatever came next. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't worried about the future, because no matter what happened, I knew one thing for certain: I wouldn't be facing it alone. A year later, Chase still blamed the leaking guest room ceiling. Not me, not Diego, the ceiling. According to him, it had ruined his life, or at least his reputation. You understand, he said one evening, that everyone still makes fun of me for not noticing. I nearly dropped my drink laughing. Diego wasn't helping. He was laughing even harder. You lived in the same house, Diego reminded him. Exactly. That's not helping your case. It should. It really doesn't. Chase groaned dramatically. Some things never changed. And honestly, I was glad, because life had changed enough already, in the best possible way. The previous year had been filled with things I never expected. Weekend trips, holiday dinners, movie nights, meeting Diego's extended family, watching him become part of mine in a way that felt completely natural. There wasn't some giant dramatic moment where everything suddenly became perfect. It happened gradually, one ordinary day at a time. And somehow that made it even better. The thing about real relationships is that they're built in small moments. Morning coffee, inside jokes, late night conversations, comfortable silence, the everyday stuff, the stuff nobody writes stories about. Except that's where the best parts usually happen. One Saturday morning, Diego and I found ourselves back in my room. The same room where he'd stayed during the storm. A lot had changed since then, but some things felt exactly the same. He sat on the edge of the bed while I searched for a missing hoodie. It's gone. It's not gone. It's gone. It's literally hanging on your chair. I turned. There it was, exactly where he'd said. I pointed at him. I don't like how observant you are. You say that every time. Because it's true. His laugh filled the room. That same laugh, the one that had gotten me into trouble years ago. Eventually, I sat beside him. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Sunlight streamed through the window. The house felt quiet, peaceful. Then, Diego glanced around. Kind of funny. What is? The last time I slept in this room, I was terrified. I smiled. Terrified? I liked you. You'd liked me for 8 months. Exactly. I laughed. That's your defense? It's a great defense. It really isn't. He grinned. Then his expression softened. You know what I remember most? What? The conversation. I looked at him. The one during the storm? He nodded. We talked for hours. We did. I think that's when I knew. A warmth settled in my chest, because I knew exactly what he meant. That night hadn't changed everything because of some dramatic moment. It changed everything because we'd finally stopped hiding from each other. We'd finally been honest, and honesty turned into something real. Something lasting. Downstairs, a loud crash suddenly echoed through the house. followed immediately by Chase shouting, "I'm okay!" We both burst out laughing. Somehow, he always managed to interrupt serious moments. A few minutes later, we headed downstairs. The familiar chaos of family life greeted us. Mom cooking, Dad watching sports, Chase pretending nothing had happened despite clearly dropping something. Normal, comfortable, home. As everyone settled around the table for dinner, I caught Diego smiling at me from across the room. And for a second, my mind drifted back to that stormy night, back to the leaking ceiling, back to the unexpected sleeping arrangement, back to the moment everything started. Funny how life works sometimes. You spend years waiting for something important to happen. Then it arrives disguised as a problem, a storm, a broken ceiling, one unexpected night, and suddenly your entire future changes. Later that evening, after dinner ended and everyone drifted off to do their own thing, Diego and I stepped outside onto the porch. The sun was setting, the sky painted orange and gold. The neighborhood sat quiet around us. For a while, we simply stood there together, enjoying the view, enjoying the moment. Then Diego slipped his hand into mine, the same simple gesture that still made me smile. "No storm tonight," he said. I laughed, thankfully, although I raised an eyebrow. "Although what?" He grinned. "That first one worked out pretty well." I shook my head. "Maybe." "Maybe? Okay, definitely." His smile widened, and standing there beside him, watching the sunset, I realized something. For years, I'd thought the best part of this story would be the night my brother's best friend stayed over and slept in my bed. But I was wrong. That was only the beginning. The best part was everything that came after. The laughter, the friendship, the relationship we built together. The ordinary days that slowly became extraordinary, simply because we shared them. And as Diego squeezed my hand, I knew one thing for sure. If I could go back and relive that storm all over again, I'd do it every single time.